when suddenly lightning struck and hit her under the tree, causing Bidemi to fall unconscious. The old man then told Bidemi that she was in the land of the forgotten, also known as the land of the abandoned. Once upon a time, in a distant village in the south, lived a beautiful girl named Bidemi. Bidemi lived in a village with her poor old mother, who suffered from memory loss. Bidemi's old mother would stay for days without remembering who she was or if she had a daughter or family. Her memory would most often return, and in this time, Bidemi's mother would remember all about her life and daughter. However, her occasional memory loss made it difficult for her to cater for herself, leaving her at the mercy of her daughter Bidemi, who found it problematic to look after her old mother. Bidemi would leave her mother all alone in their hut for hours, not caring about her well-being. Oftentimes, her mother would stay hungry all day as she always forgot to eat her food. All this began to take a toll on her health as her daughter paid no mind to her and would always scream at her to die as her burden was becoming unbearable. One morning, Bidemi was about leaving the house when her mother suddenly regained her memory. She called Bidemi aside and pleaded with her to stay back and look after her, but Bidemi, being so headstrong, paid no mind to her old mother as she left the house, not minding how her mother would cope in her absence. She walked for a few minutes and heavy rain began to fall. Bidemi looked for a nearby tree to seek refuge. She saw a huge tree next to an old hut, so she ran under the tree to shield herself from the rain, when suddenly lightning struck and hit her under the tree, causing Bidemi to fall unconscious. For hours, Bidemi remained unconscious and later woke up to find herself in a strange land. "This is not my village," Bidemi whispered beneath her breath as she began to walk, looking for someone who could tell her where she was. Bidemi then saw a small hut in the distance and walked gently towards it. She knocked at the door and an old man opened up and smiled at her. "Seems you are new here," he asked with his cracked voice, and Bidemi stammered as she asked the old man where she was. The old man then told Bidemi that she was in the land of the forgotten, also known as the land of the abandoned. Bidemi looked puzzled as she had no idea what the man was talking about. She asked what the man meant by the land of the forgotten, and the man explained to her that only people whose loved ones have forgotten about them are sent to the land of the forgotten. The old man then revealed that he had been stuck here for years as all his loved ones forgot about him when he was extremely sick. He recollected that his family abandoned him when he was sick, and one day he fell off his bed and found himself in the strange land and has remained there ever since. The old man said to Bidemi that in the land of the forgotten, every second counts, as one would be unable to return to the real world if their return door disappears. The old man then asked Bidemi to show him the spot where she awoke, and Bidemi took him to the exact spot, which was a short distance from his hut. The old man then showed Bidemi a magical door by the tree, saying that Bidemi could only return if the door opens, and that after a certain time it would be impossible for her to ever return, as the door disappears when one's time is up. Bidemi's heart raced, as she had never heard a thing like this before. She asked the old man what she could do to open the door, and the old man revealed to her that only when a loved one yearns for one's return would the door be opened unto them. Bidemi began to panic, as she knew that the only person in the world who loved her was her mother. Bidemi knew that with her mother's memory loss, it would be difficult for her old mother to remember her, talk more of wishing for her return. At that point, Bidemi began to regret all the terrible things she said and did to her old mother, and prayed that her mother remembered her soon, so that she could return back to their village. Whilst in the land of the forgotten, Bidemi heard a cry and decided to check who was crying. She saw a very beautiful little girl who sat at a corner alone. Bidemi wondered how one would forget such a beautiful girl and decided to approach her. She asked what her name was and why she was crying, and the little girl revealed that her name was Biola and that she was crying because her doll just vanished and that she had no way of returning back to the real world. Bidemi asked the girl why no one had thought about her and wished for her return all this while, and the girl said to her that she was the beloved daughter of a very powerful king. One day, she woke up to screams and commotion in her father's palace and noticed that the king of the rival village had sent some men to invade her father's palace, killing everyone present, including her father, the king. Biola tried to run away, but was caught by one of the men, who hit her on the head with a very huge stick. She woke up to find herself in the land of the forgotten and hoped that someone who loved her would wish for her return, but no one did, and her doll finally disappeared, leaving her trapped in the land. Tears filled Bidemi's eyes as she felt so terrible for Biola. Bidemi then decided to go sit at the spot where she appeared, hoping that her door would miraculously open. For days, nothing happened, and the thought of remaining stuck in the land of the forgotten frightened Bidemi, who began to sing an old song her old mother taught her to sing whenever she was in trouble. Bidemi sang the song repeatedly as tears poured down from her eyes. As she was singing, Bidemi noticed that her doll began to fade. She rushed to the old man's hut to ask how much longer she had till the doll finally disappeared, and the old man revealed to her that once a person's doll begins to fade, it lasted only a few hours before it finally disappeared, and Bidemi sat down on the floor and began to wail out loud. She called out for her dear mother and asked for her forgiveness. Bidemi apologized to her mother from her heart, promising that if she ever returned to their village, that she will make things right by looking after her old mother. Bidemi called her mother by the sweet names that she called her when she was a child, and this brought back all the good memories as Bidemi began to remember all of her mother's sacrifices for her, as well as the not so good memories when her mother stayed hungry just to ensure that she had food to eat. Tears continued to pour out of Bidemi's eyes as she noticed that the doll was fast fading away. The old man then walked up to Bidemi to comfort her, as he knew that if nothing happened in a few minutes, her door would disappear forever. Bidemi let out a loud cry as she looked into the old man's teary eyes. She could only see a faint glimmer of her door and decided not to break her heart further by staring at the door as it faded away. So Bidemi decided to go to the old man's hut to take her mind off her disappointment. The old man then decided to tell Bidemi some of his deepest secrets, saying that if she ever left the land of the forgotten, that she should go look for his two sons and tell them all that he had told her. As they were talking, Bidemi heard a loud scream outside. Someone was calling her name, so she rushed to check who it was and caught sight of Biola, the young beautiful girl, pointing at her door. "Bidemi, your door has opened," Biola said with excitement in her voice, as Bidemi ran as fast as her legs could carry her to confirm if what Biola had said was true. Her heart was filled with joy as she could not believe that she was finally returning home. She then hugged the old man and the beautiful girl Biola as she bid them farewell. Then she stepped into the door and into the light and found herself back in her village. Bidemi ran home as fast as she could. She met her mother standing outside their hut, calling out her name as she cried. Bidemi rushed to her mother and gave her a very big hug. She then apologized for all the terrible things she did to her mother in the past and promised to always be there for her no matter what. Bidemi took a good look at her mother and noticed how frail and unkempt her mother looked. She then took care of her mother in a way that she had never done before. After a few days, Bidemi noticed that her mother looked a lot better and was no more forgetful. She then decided to pay a visit to the family of the old man she met at the land of the forgotten. She had promised to deliver his message to his sons if she ever left the strange land. Bidemi arrived at the old man's family hut and met his two sons. Bidemi told them all that happened and how their father was trapped in the land of the forgotten. They laughed at her, calling her a mad woman, but Bidemi then revealed to them some of their father's deepest secrets that only them knew about, and the brothers began to give her a listening ear. Bidemi then told them of their father's hidden treasure, which had been buried for years. She pointed to the spot where their father had buried his treasure and told them to dig up, and when they did, they found his box of treasures and were filled with regret because of how they treated their father when he was still alive. They asked Bidemi how they could speak to their dear father, but she revealed to them that it was too late as his door of return had already disappeared. Bidemi then went on to tell them that their father had forgiven them years ago and that they should not beat themselves up, as he told her to let them know about this. Bidemi returned back to her hut and ensured that all her mother's needs were met. She was grateful for the second chance given to her to make things right with her old mother and never disrespected her mother again. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should always cherish the people God puts in our lives, as you never know when it will be too late to do so. Never neglect your old parents, especially knowing all the sacrifices they have made for you in the past. Love and cherish them always, and you will live a beautiful and fulfilled life. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.